Hello, welcome to the Buddy Martin Show. I'm Brendan Martin, and sitting in for the maestro for, sort of live. I'm fixing everything up, fixing it all up, everybody. Welcome, come on, come all into the show, into my living room, into the comfortable space. This is the Buddy Martin Show. We're going to hear from Buddy and David Whitley here in just a second. Buddy is speaking tonight at the Gainesville Gator Club. He may join me afterwards. He's going to do the first segment here, and then I'm going to be joined by Loren Meodows, and we're going to talk to you about all the coaching craziness that's going on. Uh, Chip Kelly, I think, is on the chopping block. I don't know if that's confirmed yet, but plenty of gremlins in the house here tonight. So make sure that you click down on the right-hand side over here and subscribe to the show. Very important. Subscribe. 60% of you don't subscribe. We are going to, I just like failing wire and chewing gum, got like wires put together to get us on the air. But hey, we're here. A little bit into a whirlwind. Nonetheless, I will do this. Let's hear from the open. We'll come back. That's what I said. We're going to hear a little bit from Billy Napier as well. So lots on deck tonight. But first, I want to say welcome to the show.
It's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
And like I said, Buddy is on assignment, truly is on assignment. He might be calling in a little bit later. But first, he did have some time earlier today to talk to David Whitley, and they had a nice conversation. So let's go ahead and cue that up. And afterwards, we will have Loren Meodows, myself, and Buddy may call in and from the road with Chris Spears and all sorts of craziness. So this was earlier today, but in TV magic, we're going to pretend it's live.
Time now for our weekly visit with the maestro himself, David Whitley. David, good to see you again. And I want to kind of get a fix on where things are in the State of the Union of Florida football. Kind of crazy lately. And let's just say this. There may be a storm on the horizon, but I don't think it's a Category 5. What do you think?
No, I think it is probably about a Category 3. Mm-hmm. And even if the winds really get rocky and you crash into the shore at Columbia, and then you crash that final game at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium against Florida State. It's nothing. It's not a storm that Billy Napier can't weather. There's no. You hear all the time, hot seat, hot, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we all know that he's still in real good stead with the powers that be at Florida, the people who make the call. But it would make for a rocky offseason. You hate going to all those Gator clubs and functions throughout the year and do it with a 5-game losing streak at your back. Yeah. It would be a lot easier if they can somehow win one of the next two. If you had to pick one or two, you'd go with Saturday night a week from now, and ruin FSU.
Yeah, that would be a good way to end a bad season, and maybe to salvage something, including a bowl game and non-losing season. Which, by the way, to the miracle of internet, we're talking here tonight. I'm doing this show, and I'm also speaking at the Gainesville Quarterback Club. So, that's how you do that. But so the topics are obviously the losing seasons. David, we're not accustomed to this kind of stuff around here. If he doesn't win one more game, it's going to be a third straight losing season for Florida football, of which 2 are his. That doesn't happen around here very often.
Remember the last time that happened?
Funny you should ask that right here. I'm going to tell you. For all you people out there at the Gainesville Quarterback Club answering a trivia question before I give it, here it is. According to my records, what is it Johnny Carson said in a mayonnaise jar under Funkawagler's porch or something?
That's right.
1945, 46, and 47. The last time Florida had 3 in a row. They were 4-5-1 in 45, 0-9 in 46, and 4-5 in 47. Now, you ask who were the coaches? Well, Thomas J. Lee was the coach in 45 and 46, and Raymond B. Bear Wolf was the coach in 46. So 44, 45, Lee, 46, Raymond B. Wolf. What's significant about that? That's the beginning of the so-called golden era. Now, I tried to explain to Shane, a youngster, Shane Matthews, why you can't call Todd Golden's time at Florida the golden era. And that's why right there. Well, nobody cares about that. Well, Shane thinks if it happened before 1989, then it didn't really happen. But I wouldn't want to see that. So that's the last time it happened. Just not something we see around here much.
No, I don't. And I think they probably would have fired the one coach earlier except for his $77 million buyout.
Yeah. He was probably $19.43 at that point.
Yeah. What would Ray Graves get when he was coaching here? I
think 60,000 is what he got, I believe, first year.
60,000. Well, that'd be like a $30,000 buyout these days. But, anyway.
And Jay Wayne Rice is only making 60, so he said he refused to pay Ray Graves more than he was making. So there you go. Which, by the way,
Chip wouldn't mind making 7.6 mil. Times have changed, but that is not something you want to have on your resume if you're a Florida coach. But let's face it, the odds are that it's going to happen. And at Billy's press conference yesterday, the corpses are starting to pile up in the SEC right now. As we alluded to, Jimbo finally got the axe Monday, and Zach Arnett, Mississippi State. And, you just can't be patient. It used to be no matter how bad the things were going, you didn't fire a coach till after the year, and because you didn't have to hire one right away. But now it all comes down to recruiting, and that means you have to have something in place in December when signing day is and the portal opens.
And so the coffers are still open from the people with the money, because if they dry up, then there goes your class that you had signed, right?
Mm-hmm. So, that's not going to be an issue at Florida. The issue, is, can you keep the class together? The number 3, now it's number 4 class. A couple of guys
matriculated, as they say.
Yes. Which I think, I don't think 2 is anything to panic about, because I think everybody's going to lose a couple, and that's just the nature of the business now. Does it become 4, 5, and 6? Kind of players. And you can make an argument, well, heck, some guys, they see they're losing, that means they know they can come in here and start right away. It enhances their chances to go, and it fires them up even more. So I don't think it'll be a big issue. Just the bigger issue is, will there be what staff changes will there be in the offseason? Are we going to get that offensive coordinator? Are we going to get that special teams revamping that is so badly needed? I think we will, but again, it's going to be a nuclear winter of sorts if you go in with a 5-game losing streak and no bowl game.
Which one of those jobs do you think needs most attendance? Because Billy's the offensive coordinator, he's a quarterback coach, he's the head coach, kind of does it all. Chief recruiter, bottle washer, what do you want to call it? And some people say you can't do all that today. I don't know. I'm not a coach, but I can tell you it's a lot. And when you miss things like the proper number of people on the field on a field goal or whatever, it shows. Now, I'm of the school, I believe Urban Meyer's right when he says the special teams coach needs to be the head coach because he's the one who says to all his first round draft picks, you're playing special teams. And David Whitley says, oh, no, I'm not. So, David, you can sit till you play special teams. The power to do that and that influence. And he said outright, you got to brainwash him to do that. His special teams were phenomenal. And he said, 600 yards, 40 or 50 yards on special teams in a game can make a difference in a close game. And I believe that. But here's the larger picture. You know me, David, I'm a big picture guy. The moral high ground, okay? And my question is there something wrong with our athletic society? We're willing to pay a guy $76 million not to coach.
I think it's crazy when you think about that amount of money, but the sad fact is that, there's so much money in sports now that it's got to go somewhere. And and they have rigged it to such that if a guy, if you're going to get a guy, you got to promise him that. Now, I think it would be, I don't know, it might be collusion, but if every athletic director would get together and say, look, we're just not going to do this. We're not going to give these guarantees to keep these guys here. We're going to treat them like, pretty much every other employee. We give them, they can give a nice 2-week bonus, check and maybe pick up a plant on the way out the door or something like that, and be happy with that. Because, when you're fired, I'm hard pressed to think of another golden parachute like they've given these coaches, and it's just it's a head scratcher. But that's it's guys like Jimmy Sexton, the super agent, and he may be talk about a guy who gets Christmas cards every year from. I mean, not only he's Jimbo Fisher's agent, he was Gus Malzahn's agent, he was Willie Taggart's agent. And, I think of the top 5 buyouts, he has probably 4 of them that he's gotten. So, more part, that's what he's hired to do. And he's very good at it. But, it's sort of like putting the toothpaste back in the tube. I don't know how you do it now, but you sort of wish that way back when they would have gotten and said, when a guy gets, when a guy is bad at his job and you fire him, why should we pay you the balance? That doesn't happen in any, I'm hard pressed to think. I mean, you hear about some of these golden parachutes CEOs get, but 98% of the American workforce, if you stink at your job, you get fired. You may get a
2 weeks in a bag of chips.
Yeah, you're happy to just get a good reference from the people at your next job and saying, well, he is a hard worker. It just didn't work out.
David, do you have Jimmy Sexton's number?
I don't think he'd pick up my call if he did, but I would love to.
I think we should go as a package deal.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
right.
So
I well, I have a daughter. She's in high school and she's looking for jobs. I said, look, I don't care if you go to McDonald's, get Jimmy Sexton your agent, and give him to pay you $5 million if you stink at the drive-through.
Yeah, there you go. Well, here's the other thing too that I think that if we get fired, we ought to at least get a year's worth of McDonald's. You know what I mean? At least that to carry our buyout. Well, so it is, and so here we are, and the only thing left that could happen with a good spin. By the way, I am actually giving them credit for playing hard. I like the way they played. Everybody wants to tell them how lousy they were on defense. They missed tackles. Yeah, they were trying to tackle smoke. He did that. He's done it to everybody. Jaden Daniels has. So I'm not as harsh on them. What I saw in the game, I think I could call myself trained eyes. I've seen enough football. I saw maximum effort. Now I know there are no moral victories. Don't get excited out there, but I mean, what else can you do? At this point in time, I asked the question: so you want to fire Billy Napier? Then who do you hire? And how long is that going to take? That's just not going to happen. Now, do I think that things should change? Yes, I do think things should change. And I think they will. I don't know whether he wants to hire a special teams coach. And I think he should, because there's not a special teams coach listed on the whole docket of 100 coaches called game changers, And I'm thinking if Urban Meyer says you need a name and a face on it, I would agree with that. Something needs to be changed there. play caller, I'm okay with his play calling. I think Shane and Matthews and I agree he's a pretty good play caller. And he's a good organizer. He may have been a little too slow to react. Maybe he ought to be more aggressive in the portal, things of that nature. And he needs to get some other coaches in there. And as someone said the other day, David, I'll ask you the question. There are 90 people on that staff who are analysts, or what do you want to call them, from dietitians to whatever, the game changers. Can you name one?
Negative. Nope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like the Kremlin in there. You know that there's millions of people working, but they're nameless and faceless. And I mean, I can name the assistant coaches, but you literally have maybe 20 minutes the entire year of FaceTime with them, which is unfortunate. But as it relates to like the special thing, I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen. There are you've got a Chris Couch is the coordinator of the game changers.
Correct.
But does that mean he is sort of the de facto coach? My sense is you probably have somebody in charge of the punting team or the blah blah blah. It doesn't work. What you said about Urban, just saying it about. I think it is interesting how the a month ago, everyone said, he needs an offensive coordinator, play calling and good. That has lessened because the offense hasn't been an issue
right
the last week. And when you consider how leaky that offensive line is, I think that that they're that they've really done a good job in his play calling. Considering what he has to work with, he's done well. I think the benefit of him having an offensive coordinator and him having some input in the offense would be it would free him up to be more of an overseer of special teams, because you can be. I think a head coach can be a special teams coach. It doesn't require as much time as it does to an offensive coordinator and get up that game plan kind of thing. And he could devote more to that, but so much else. It's talking to the Missouri beat writer today who covers the tie about Eli Drinkwitz and how Drinkwitz gave up his play calling this year. And, he was bought in for his play calling. He was a whiz, but it didn't really pan out the first few years, but he was recruiting well. And, he was changing the culture there and things were going on, but he just realized that there was just too much else going on, too many other duties that he has that are involved in running a big time program. He wasn't at Appalachian State anymore. Yeah. And he's, in order to do that, and to handle all the outside things and the inside things and running a program, he needed it just for his own time, just to devote to other things. And he still has his hand involved in it, of course. And I think by doing that, it would help Billy keep those 90 plus people organized and more focused. And because you are. This ain't the old days where your football coach had 12 guys to work with, and then he was also the AD and hiring basketball. In the old days you could do that, but those old days, that was 50 years ago. Yeah, we're long past that now.
Well, I've been accused of being the old guy. I guess I am on Shane's show. People tell me I'm just old fashioned. I don't get it. Well, the game has changed. Shane says you got to pay guys for everything. They want $5,000 to take a visit now. I get all that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just naive and stupid. No, I cannot believe in my heart of hearts that the college football is driven completely by money. I know it's a big factor. I know it's changed. I realize you have to have it. But there's got to be some intrinsic value to playing football and having education at a good school. And yes, there has to be some money involved. I can't believe that it's just totally mercenary, that everybody wants money. If it is, then I don't know what to think of it. But I know checkbooks don't buy championships. Ask George Steinbrenner. He's tried for a long time. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think that if all things being equal, it is the intrinsic things you talk about. But if you're thinking of going to school A and school B, and school A is offering you $25,000 more than school B, you're going to go to school B. I think where it's going to go and where it really has gotten to now, except for maybe a crazy Miami booster, is you won't get outbid. Every kid SEC level recruit at least the top level, the Bama, the guys that go to Bama, Georgia, and Florida is trying to get, the money is probably the same. Then it becomes more of the intrinsic things. Who am I more comfortable with coaching wise? This stuff, who, like when you hear Billy talk about what this is a top 5 school in U.S. News World Report. You have the boost organization, the connections you'll make everywhere. And all those things that make Florida that we relate to. I think that still matters, and that's what kids will weigh against those things that Georgia offers in Alabama, if the money's basically the same. But and I think that's where it's gotten. Hopefully, but it is sad that you hear the numbers around where guys will just they'll get $5,000 just to show up for a recruiting visit, and boy, somewhere Charlie Pell's pulling his hair out, thinking, "Holy cow, things have changed." But yeah, I do think that those intangibles do matter still at that level. I mean, because if a kid is this debate between Bama and Georgia, chances are the money's the same. It's just, do you want to play for Kirby Smart or Nick Saban?
True.
Those kind of things at this point. And I think it will get that. It is that way there. That I think on the NIL money level, Florida has gotten its act together to the point where I don't think they're losing people to because of NIL. I think it's just tough recruiting against Kirby Smart and Nick Saban. It's always going to be, has been. But they're getting to where they, what they do have to offer can match that.
Well, this transitory system we've got now, there are going to be a lot of people in the game of musical chairs changing seats here. Get used to seeing 3 and 4 stars and whatever 5s there are changing, and Florida's going to lose some. There's going to be some collateral damage. There already is. We've seen that. This is the game they play now, and you're going to see this. They're shopping. So there's going to be some stuff going on. So it's hard for a Gator fan to say, oh, no, the class was number 3. They lost a couple of guys. They're number 4. They're going to slip to number 8. I get all that, and I know it's important. I'm not downgrading the importance of recruiting. I understand that. But from a perspective of a Gator fan, you've been around. You grew up in Jacksonville. You know what it's like to be a Gator fan. I'm thinking, how are you going to keep your sanity in the next few months? How can you derive something from being a Gator fan? And it can't be like this, because the holidays are coming. There will be home probably for for the bowl season. It's going to be a quote unquote another rebuilding season. And, those Gators who take it the wrong way stay off of high ledges and don't go around sharp objects. But bottom line is, there is something to salvage from this. I thought back on my own life and my own career from the time I was a wee boy chasing around stiff-arming chairs while listening to Otis Boggs. There was always something about it. Now, everybody can't have that passion like you and I do. But there is something to be gained. And I thought, well, if you can gain something, what can you derive from this season? Take what you can take and move on, because it's not going to be a championship year. Do you think the bones are good? I think the bones are good on this team. I like what Billy's doing. Do I have evidence to prove that he will win championships? No, but there's only going to be one champion. And you can't be Georgia. You're not going to be Georgia. So let's be realistic here and say, what are you looking for here? What do you want out of this team? Because if you're thinking about winning an SEC championship, you better tuck that away for a while. As I said to Shane, there are such things as dreams and expectations. Dreams came true in 1996. Expectations have been tough ever since then, including through Urban Meyer, who managed to overcome it. And now we're living off of expectations and reputation. So you can tell me what's good enough for you as a Gator fan. What do you have to see? I thought about some of the teams I've liked and really enjoyed knowing them. I like relationships, which you can't have anymore. I loved Carlos Alvarez and John Reeves and Fred Penka. Yeah, I know it was 100 years ago. That team was a really fun team to watch. I enjoyed the relationships I had with the players and coaches, and they didn't win any championships. So, David, if you can't get a championship as a fan, what do you do?
Well, right now, I think if you're a Florida fan, you would just like to see it trending in the positive and in the right direction. And that's going to be hard if you just look at the number which probably will be 5-7, and if it is, what do you claim? Hope would be, and it gets down to and I hate it because it's such a crap is recruiting. If you can say, well, we've got the number of whatever any top 5 class, that's okay. That says that a brighter day might be ahead. Beyond that, it's hard. They did play, as you said. They played well. You can see that. I think this team, the culture is good, and they're getting the right kind of guys in there. The culture that don't quit and have the right attitude and all that, and you can see where that might pay off down the road. But you don't even get to the road again for 9 months.
Right.
You got, and that's going to be hard. And you can point to basically you have to hook. If you're looking for optimism, you have to hook your wagon to someone like DJ Lago, which I think is silly, but it's the only wagon out there to hitch right now. Saying, we're bringing in this kid, and he might be all that, and that's might be all that, and you it's sort of a balance, because you want to be excited about that, but you also want to be realistic and say it still ain't going to happen overnight. That these are 18-year-old kids coming in, it's going to take time to mature. But right now, other than recruiting, if Billy, I'm trying to think, bought in, I think said I'm bringing in, revamping, getting the special teams guy and getting an offensive coordinator. Now, whether he really needs it or not at this point, I think he needs it, if nothing else, from a PR standpoint, just to appease people. Say, okay, because he said yesterday, he says, it's about, I got to find, but you have to adapt along the way and change. And said, and that's all part of the adaptation that he needs to make along the way. Yeah. And so I think that, if he can go in front of everybody and say, look, it was rough, but it's 2 years, but I think he needs to go out on the and basically say it's going to get. We're going to see improvement this year. You're going to see. I don't know if he should put a number on it, but he needs to put his neck out, because whether he wants to or not, his neck is out now, because guys like you and I who have I don't say we made excuses, but we're giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Every benefit of the doubt we can.
Yeah, but by you, and you can do that. Even if they lose the next 2, I'd say, well, look, you got to give him at least 3 years to see something. But by next year, you got even the non-skeptics like us need to see something next year, because another 5 or 6 win year
can't have
is not going to cut it.
No. All right, David, here's your assignment. I'll do this quick read on the spot. Titan MRI. Since the golden era is taken from 1945, 46, and 47, and you can't use the golden era, even in basketball. If this team has 3 straight losing seasons, what name should we give it? Think about that when I read this spot, and I'll come back and say, what should this era be called if they lose next 2 games? All right? Titan MRI is worth a short drive to Gainesville. No insurance, no problem. You can pay with cash or card, same-day scheduling. You can start feeling better today, because Titan MRI is North Central Florida's premier independent facility. Come see what hundreds of patients are visiting our Gainesville site from places like Ocala, Marion County, Lake City, the Villages. That's TitanMRI.com. David, golden era is taken. What would this era be called if they lose the next 2?
The Dark Ages.
Dark Ages.
I know that's taken 2. Someone took it like centuries ago.
Yeah.
But the Dark Ages led to the Enlightenment. So
okay, well, there's that.
Maybe
the brass era. I don't know. Whatever.
Right. The brass era, and then but every era, like things are dark. Then along came the Industrial Revolution, and that led to better. So there's hope. Maybe call.
All right, now you're flaunting your knowledge of history. Now you're starting to flaunt your background education.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
But there, it could just be the transition area.
There you go. We'll work on that one. I'll get back to you next week on our show. All right.
All right.
David Whitley, columnist of the Gainesville Sun, one of our favorite guys to have on. Appreciate it, David. Have a good one. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, buddy. See you later.
Well, that was David Whitley and Buddy Martin earlier today, and now I'm joined by some of my favorite people here. That would be Francis Beard coming from the basketball game, Mr. Loren Meadows, chilling in his abode. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me tonight, and how are we?
How you guys doing?
Nice guy.
Now, Franz, give us an update. What happened in the basketball game?
Florida played bored and won 89-68, a game they should have won, did win. The first half, FAMU came out, was a little, slapping wrists and slapping hands and just getting a little physical with them and kind of irritating them a bunch. And yet they still came out. They got their points and led at the half and played better in the second half. I think this is a team that's going to play up to its competition. I think the better the competition, the better they'll play. But the important thing is they got the win, and they won by 21 points. And it's hard to, when you win by 21 or what was it, 80? Did they have 68 or 69? 89-68. They won by 21. When you win by 21, you shouldn't complain too much. And they won by 21. Could have won by 40. We'd have still been there all night if the officials had called all the fouling that went on. FAMU might have fouled everybody out on the team. So that would have been interesting. But anyway, a good win by the Gators.
Gators get back on track. Todd Golden them back on track with the win against FAMU. Loren, did you see? You did not go to the basketball game.
No, I wasn't able to make it tonight, but I did watch. And like Fran said, the Gators look, like I said, just kind of going through the motions. A team they should beat, kind of coming off an emotional game this past weekend, and it just. Like he said, it was one of those games with your typical midweek game. If it would have been a conference game, may have been an opportunity for a slip up, but non-conference, midweek, early week game. I mean, they just took care of business.
Well, that's good. It's good to see the Gators get back on track. Now, we just heard from David Whitley and the old Budrow there. Franz calling us from the back of his limo. He gets a preferential treatment when he goes in there. Obviously conversation surrounding around the coaching carousel, as I was talking earlier. Round and round it goes. Where it stopped, only the money knows. We saw earlier today that on 3 reporting that Mr. Chip Kelly might be the next one on the chopping block after, I believe, his 6-year tenure over there with the Bruins. It sounds like he's getting the hook. Which makes number 3. So, Loren, you said earlier today, wow, the landscape, it is a changing. Generally, it's not too much. Franz, I know you write a column every year about what do you call it? The coaches that get fired coaches. What's that?
Countdown to firing day.
Countdown to firing day. That's right. It's one of my favorite pieces.
They used to have this thing about recruiting called Countdown to Signing Day. And I just kind of took a little liberty with it and started calling it Countdown to Firing Day. Because who was it that once said, it was a baseball manager, says you get hired. The moment you get hired, the countdown begins until the day you get fired. And, you look at all the Florida, I'll give you an interesting stat. Of all the Florida coaches, I think there have only been 3 in history that left without getting fired. James Van Fleet was one. Steve Spurrier was another, and Urban Meyer was the third. And everybody else who was hired has been fired. So, Ray Graves, I know that people say, well, he resigned. No, he didn't. He got fired by Dr. Stephen C. O'Connell. He got fired.
Well, speaking of hiring and firing with, with the Florida Gators, this whole show was surrounded around the initial launch of this show was the Chip Kelly drama. in which
Mm-hmm.
me and Mr. Buddy Martin bumbled out to the Ocala airport and found ourselves lucky enough to see the brass of University of Florida UAA getting off the plane with no Chip Kelly. I think one of the great comments of that was, "This is like an episode of Cheaters. This is so good." But we were trying to remember, Loren, today. I said, "Okay, so you had Dan Mullen, you had Chip Kelly. Who was the third person, right? Who was the third person that was part of the discussion?" And Franz, Loren said Scott Frost. Who was the third person that was in consideration?
Scott Frost, Chip Kelly, and Dan Mullen. And Scott Frost elected to answer when Mama called. And, you know, I hate to think about what might have happened at UCF had he stayed there, because he really had a good thing going there at UCF.
Yeah.
And with them joining the Big 12, I think he would have had that program at such a high level that when they joined the Big 12, they would have really been, a serious powerhouse to be taken very seriously. But not everybody can turn down $5 million a year and Mama calling when you're making $1 million and you're in Orlando.
Wow.
So he did it. Chip Kelly played the Gators the whole way. He never really intended to come to Florida, but he was able to play that into a good contract that he wanted at UCLA. And when they went up there with all the paperwork to get him signed up in New Hampshire, and they came home without a signature, he was gone for good. That was it. He had played us and got what he wanted out of it. And that left Dan Mullen. So one call was made. Scott Strickland to Dan Mullen. Megan Mullen answered the phone. Megan Mullen saw him answer the phone, and her comment before she even knew who it was, "If it's Florida, we're going." And they did. And this is another.
And we were all, Gator fan was happy about that. I mean, I think we were all sort of happy about it.
Well, I mean, if you, like I told somebody when I moved, we kind of all met under the whole Mullen regime. And the day we all met, that very first game, I thought, if you'd have told me when I met you two that very day that Dan Mullen would still not be the coach at the University of Florida, I'd have took that bet and I'd have took it for as much money. I mean, I thought it was a match made in heaven. I actually thought it was two coaches too late. I thought they should have hired him, and I don't know the inner workings France would, but I thought it was a little late to hire him, but I still thought it was a great hire that day in 2018.
I was psyched. I thought it was a really good hire.
And I never thought that wouldn't work. I still got to go back and figure out what happened, because I still can't believe that he is still not the coach at Florida.
If they had hired him when Urban resigned, would have been the right hire. He would have had Mark Pantoni here.
Yeah, it's gonna have Pantoni.
And I think that he would have had the number one recruiting class that was here with Urban. I think it would have. I think it. Timing's everything, and I think the timing on this one was they hired him. He got set in his ways at Mississippi State, and I think he came here believing that he could win with the same kind of players you win with at Mississippi State. He's winning 7, 8, sometimes 9 ball games with those guys at Mississippi State. You come here to Florida and 7 and 8 wins a year get you fired, as we found out with Will Muschamp, who averaged 7, 8 games a year and got himself fired out of it. So I think the timing for Dan would have been right immediately when Urban resigned, because he'd only been gone at that point in time. He would have only been gone 2 years. A lot of the players are still players that he worked with. John Brantley he had worked with, for example, etc. like that. I think things would have turned out a whole lot differently for him had he done that. But it just goes to show you, timing's everything. Do I think Chip Kelly would have done better here at Florida than he did at UCLA? Absolutely. One of the dumb things he ever did was go to UCLA where they have no facilities. And had he come here and been able to grow into the facilities, I think he would have done a whole lot better.
I feel like he's like the con artist too of college. I think he's like, man, I'm going to go down there. I feel like if Chip Kelly's a con man, he's like after Philadelphia, he's like, I'm done. I'm going to go get a sweet paycheck, get some of that California cuisine. I saw his press conference today, and I was like, wow, he looks a little lighter. He's out there in that West Coast, avocados and toast kind of a deal out there. And I think his wife probably wanted to go out there. So he got a pretty cush deal there for what? Was it 6 years? This is his 6th year, I think.
Yeah, he got a long-term deal at basically $6 million a year, and
get you like a condo. I know.
Well,
yeah,
I think that
3-bedroomer.
Go back to the timing's everything. Put him at Florida, and I think things could have changed dramatically, because I think when he took the UCLA job, I think he thought the idea of California, of Los Angeles, would outweigh the fact that they have no facilities. They play at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, which is like, if it's traffic, if it's 5 o'clock traffic time in California, Westwood to Pasadena will only take you about 2 hours.
To
get there.
Traffic.
The traffic's ridiculous. The price is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think this is a case of, had he come to Florida, it would have been much, much better for him. But I think he believed that the lure of Los Angeles was great enough to overcome the lack of facilities, etc.
Well, I mean, in Loren, there was no Hefner Center, back then. There was no facilities. That's one thing Dan Mullen whined about quite a bit. But I thought this was sort of an interesting segue. I think Mullen won 10 games his first season. 10 games? He won 10 games.
10 games, yeah.
Yeah, 10 games. 10 and 11, and then before he went 8-4, right? So he goes 8-4, sky's falling, end of the world type of a situation. Now we're faced with, okay, Billy's got, is really hoping to finish the year at 5 wins and call it a decent season and hold on to his recruiting class. And we're all giving that a pass as if that's the norm, which clearly it wasn't the norm, even though, the scuttlebutt is Mullen left the cupboards bare. And this was the whole concept of bringing, somebody else in to come in and change this entire deal. Did it need to be taken down to the studs, and did it need to be this? Because now, next year they're saying, well, we got Billy. We could get 4 wins with that schedule, right? Because those guys aren't going to, that 2024 class, if it stays together, they're not going to come in and play. So you're going to see a lot of this return deal. So I don't know. Is it right to think that, well, Billy's the guy because he's got a track record in the Sun Belt? I don't know. I mean, I'm
not giving him a pass. I think you and I have had enough discussions where
I'm not giving him a pass.
Yeah, I'm not buying it at all. So, I mean, I think that, I've been away for, I was off gallivanting last week, so I didn't get to really chime in. But, I think there's been a lot of excuses made for Billy Napier that I think from a schematic standpoint, and you and I have talked about it, have no bearing on the field product. You look at the Dan Mullen team, even though that was a 6 and 7 ball club at the end, there were probably 3 or 4 more guys. I think they lost 4 ball games by less than 10 points that year. So that could have been at least a 9-3 football team, and probably should have been. And, I just think that there's a lot of finger point. I mean, people are blaming Jeremy Foley for the fact that Billy Napier hadn't done well. I mean, I think they're just trying to find every excuse for what ultimately is the on the field product. Now, off the field with some of the things that they've done, all those things have been great under Billy Napier. I think he's done a really nice job of that. But at the end of the day, you are what your record says you are. And that would be if they end up winning 5 games and with 7 losses, that's a below average year. And this whole thing about losing is okay. And, somebody even said to me that's closer to Billy Napier than I am, that Billy Napier doesn't even care how many games he literally told me, someone told me this before the season, Billy Napier doesn't care how many games he loses this
I heard
this year. I mean, those kind of things are just, you can't, just with the way that the landscape is changing. Now, I will say this, whether or not the 2024 class ends up staying the way it is, recruiting as we've known it, our generation, friends, is not this. It doesn't matter anymore because a lot of those guys don't stay. And with the transfer portal and NIL and those things, they could turn it around immediately, because the one thing Billy Napier can do is throw on that LSU tape and say, if you want to come here and play on defense, you can play day one, because that defense looked undisciplined, it looked unathletic, and it was extremely slow. And saying that
why did you say that? Only 701 yards of total offense given up.
So in my view, I just think that it just, there's nothing to, we got to stop giving passes and just because somebody smiles a certain way, or we want to make sure. Those very same people that it is what it is, and it just not. I'm not gonna. The program is not in bad shape, but the on the field product definitely has to improve.
Well, France, look, all these commits are all verbal, right? None of the ink is technically dry until next month, right? So we saw the 2 kids flip already that we expected. There's not been much fallout since then, but that could change if you go up to Missouri and Drinkowitz and company, decide to hand you in a complete and total blowout. And then Florida State comes and dances and throws a spear in the middle of the field in the swamp at 7:00, which the game has been announced. But my question to you, Franz, is that is this about the $31 million buyout at this point? No. Then it's about Strickland giving him the hall pass in this process. Explain to me how it makes sense in Gator culture at this point to give him a pass when he's untested or proven, has no track record in the SEC.
I'll do it with 2 questions. How many football coaches have they had at Georgia in this century?
I don't know the answer. 2 or 3?
2. Okay. And they won 154 games under Mark Richt. Okay. So you win 154 games under Mark Richt. Guess what? The program's in good shape. All right. Along comes Nick Saban at Alabama. All right. How many football coaches has Alabama had since 2007? 1, Nick Saban. Yeah. Continuity pays off. Alabama even though Nick took over a program that had a losing season, the year before they'd won 10 ball games. So they weren't that far removed from being good, and he inherited a lot of good football players. Florida, how many coaches have we had since Steve Spurrier resigned?
300.
Yeah. Billy is the 6th coach we've had. He is the 4th coach we've had since Urban Meyer resigned. Okay. That's why he's going to be, he's getting for what people think is a mulligan, because what he inherited did not happen overnight. Okay. It took 11 years to get to that point, and he's going to be given adequate time to dig out of that hole. And it is a hole. And the hole is all about the recruiting. Florida has recruited poorly. I go back to Will Muschamp. Will Muschamp could recruit a defensive side of the football, and if you don't believe it, just look at what Jim McElwain inherited, which was essentially an NFL defense. And he won 2 years with that. He was like, well, McElwain won. Yeah, with the defense Will Muschamp left behind, who all these guys are playing in the National Football League today. Yeah, that happened. But Old Yeller couldn't coach a lick.
But this isn't his first year, right? We're talking year
No.
2, and next year if he goes 4 wins or 5 wins, that's 3 years of this. Is Florida that patient in this process? And can he, as a human being, put up with that? Because that's not an easy thing to endure.
I think the people with money know what the situation is. I think he's good through the 2025 season. After that, who knows? But I think
and I mean, I agree. I agree that let me go back and say I'm not on the fire Billy Napier or even think he's on the hot seat thing. I just don't like what I see. Yeah, but I will say this. Everybody talks about Dan Mullen leaving the cupboard bare, and maybe he did if you look at it from a standpoint. But we're about to go play a team that their best player on defense is Tyron Hopper. Well, I'm talking about on defense. It's Tyron Hopper.
Mm-hmm.
And their second best player on defense is Travis Johnson, who both were recruited by Dan Mullen, who now play in Missouri. I'm just saying, like, I think that, like I said, I'm not on the fire Napier train, but like I said, I think you have to coach your team. The team you have in place right now has to be coached. And you and I, Brendan, have talked about this from 12 o'clock midnight in Salt Lake City, Pacific, Mountain Time.
Like 2 a.m.
You have to coach your team that you have right now. And I just don't think this is a very well coached football team. Coaching, yes, it does not make you win a national title without the talent that the Georgias, the Michigans, Ohio States have. But they can have you win a game or two based upon the fact that your football team is disciplined, your operations are clean, and we have not.
Coaches are listening.
Done that right.
I want to play this soundbite with this kind of going around. This is just one soundbite that Mark Longan asked about his job. Yes, on Monday. I want Franz's comment because he was there. This is Billy Napier's Monday press conference here.
The SEC, 2 coaches fired in the last 2 days, one of them with a crazy buyout, one of them without even a year on the job. Is that like life in the SEC at this level? You just got to kind of, that comes with the territory?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's been that way in this league for a long time, right? So, and look, I think, you know what you sign up for. I think we all do. But, I mean, it's part of life, right? I mean, no different, The AP decides they're going to fire you one day. It comes with the territory, right? So, we all have a job to do, right? And ultimately, I think you view it as a challenge. You view it as an opportunity. And, look, I think these are well thought out decisions. You don't just flip a coin and decide to be the head coach of the Florida Gators. I think for me, you go into it with a strategy and a plan. You adapt, you evolve, you adjust. And we're in the middle of our process, right? So, it's been happening for a long time that way.
To that, you've gotten resources commitment clearly. What's your confidence in the time commitment with Florida? I mean, you're in the middle of it. Do you feel confident in the timeline?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think we knew it wasn't going to be easy, And look, I think you have to go into it. I mean, you develop a skill set. You're equipped. These same things I'm talking about relative to our players. I can tell you I wouldn't be up here without going through a lot of tough stuff to some degree, right? So you're equipped with faith. You're equipped with discipline, your ability to come up with solutions and you got to be tough-minded. You know, you got to have endurance. You got to be able to persevere. You got to surround yourself with really good people. You know, and I think ultimately, you know, it's not like you thought we're going to run the table the first year, and you know, I mean, it's just it is what it is, right? So I think we have to continue to be action-oriented, solution-oriented. And I do believe in what we do and how we do it. You know, I mean, I think there's always adjustments that are required, but we have tremendous leadership here, top down. We have great resources. We have a tremendous product to sell. This place has done it before, and I'm firmly confident that we're capable of doing it again.
Well, I thought that was interesting. The way I think you probably wanted to jump out at Mark Long there for a minute, but the question had to be asked, right, Franz? I mean, I thought he handled the questions pretty well,
and he gave a fair answer. You know, life in the SEC is never ending, never changing. I mean, I guarantee you, when they hired Will Muschamp did not expect to lose to Georgia Southern in year 3. And really, he's a couple of close losses away from still being here in 2014. Old Yeller came here, and I guarantee you, we never expected him to lie his ass off about his family getting death threats, which they never did. He lied about it. And he lied about it because he realized he wasn't recruiting worth a crap, and he was gonna have a rotten season. I think he bailed on the team, and he was trying to get fired and did. You know, you look at that. The coaching game is weird, and the money
it's weirder.
Insanity.
Insanity. Like I said, Billy's 7-year deal. Right now, if you were to fire him, we'd owe him $31 million or 31.5 or something.
They fired Kirby Smart. It would cost him $92 million right now. Now,
you see today they had Jimbo's talk to the coaches. They recorded it on NBC, and he came in there and he told them, he acted like, "Oh, I was so shocked. I couldn't believe this happened." I was like, "Jimbo, come on, man. Take your $50 million and you cut up." Like, you know, so I don't know. No one feels all that bad for you. So, Franz and Loren, if Billy, obviously we're saying he's not the problem. You know, we all said we got to get an offensive coordinator. Things are going to change for the offense. Blah, blah, blah. Well, the offense looked pretty damn good against LSU. Clearly, the issue is defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to come back on Austin. So I harken back to an interview with Urban, one of the best Fridays in football interview about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where he says, "Urban, when you went and hired a defensive coordinator, who did you find?" He said, "I basically found the OG of OGs of defense, because that's the kind of guy you want coaching your defense, somebody that's got experience." So maybe it should be talking about finding a defensive coordinator as much as finding an offensive coordinator. Because, like I said, you know, I felt like the offense has progressively gotten better. The young freshmen wide receivers have played awesome. Billy's done a great job in the transfer portal getting these guys. And so, what do you think, Franz?
Maybe what you need to do is do what they did up at Georgia, which is they had young Dan Lanning there, and they had a young guy named Glenn Schumann there. And so what does Kirby do? He hires his old roommate, Will Muschamp.
Yeah, let's go get that.
Who is as brilliant a defensive mind as there is. And now all of a sudden, Dan Lanning, next thing you know, they win a national championship, and Dan Lanning gets a job as the Oregon head coach. Now he's got Glenn Schumann working with him last year. They win a second national championship. And I promise you, Glenn Schumann will be somebody's head coach this year. Bring in a guy, a Will Muschamp, and there are guys out there who can do it, and mentor these young guys and say, okay, your job, we're going to pay you great money, and talk about a great deal. Will Muschamp, as long as he doesn't make more than $1 million a year, gets the full buyout from South Carolina, which is 18 million big ones. And he's making $1 million a year and still getting the buyout money from South Carolina. Talk about a sweet deal. That's it. Lord, let me live long enough to be hired and fired as a major football coach. But maybe that's the answer, is to bring in somebody who's an old hand, who's been around, who knows the ropes, who's not going to panic, who's going to say, yeah, you got to do this, or yeah, you got to do that, or, tighten up the screws a bit. They're really young. 35% of all their snaps this year have been played by true freshmen. The next closest of all the schools in Division I is 24%.
Yeah. Well, Loren, I mean, look, I just always felt chaotic when it was before the ball was snapped on defense. It feels chaotic. Everyone's sort of looking around the play. Like there's no leadership, right? Shamar's gone. Certainly that didn't help things, but there was a sense of, we don't know what the F is going on out here. There is that vibe, much like special teams or whatever it was. But defensively, I felt that especially these last, 3 or 4 weeks, there were 4 weeks, there was just times where just guys didn't know, they're looking at the offense like, what? It's the first time we've seen this. Nobody was going all that crazy. Now LSU's different. I get it because, one of the greatest quarterbacks LSU maybe have ever had. And, I understand that, but I really question the ability of a young guy to come into such a fishbowl and such a deal like Florida and then have success, because we all know defense in the SEC wins games and championships.
Well, here I go again. So you and I, so Austin Armstrong comes in, and the first thing he says is, "We're not going to change much of what we did last year." Right?
Yikes.
That's what he said.
I even said they can't get any worse. I was wrong.
But from a schematic standpoint, much didn't change. So everybody's in tow with that. And then you got Sean Spencer, who's been around. You got Corey Raymond, who's supposed to be the dean of defensive back coaches, and our defensive backs are terrible right now. You got Jay Bateman, who's been a coach for a while. These guys are like our age, so they're not young guys. So they've got older guys, and then they've got a 14-year NFL veteran on the staff who's also a Florida grad. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I think that every time we talk about it, we look for a reason why. And the reason may be just like you and I go in and sit with our bosses and he evaluates our performance. He does not say, well, this, that, and the other. It is your performance. And I think, yes, Austin Armstrong. But guys like, Will Muschamp is our age. He's the same age as you and I, Brendan.
I know.
And there's guys on Florida staff that are our age. So bringing in, I think that I agree with, there's got to be something, and I agree with France on that, but I think I'm speaking to the big picture again of these reasons why, and the reasons why may just be we have not done a great job coaching this football team, which means that in order for me to keep my job as head coach, some of you may not need to be here any longer, because I got to go out and get guys, whether they're 20 years old or whether they're 50 years old, that can coach. When I started my coaching career, there were guys that had been at that high school for 30 years. I had been coaching for 4. When I went to the big high school that we had a lot of success, I was a better coach than some of the guys that have been coaching all their lives. You got to get out. You got to be energetic. You got to, and it could be you and I, we all know, me, you, and friends, Billy Napier is kind of just a, nice and easy going guy, things like that. Maybe they need to change the way they practice. Maybe, because we go to practice and watch France. It's like Catholic mass. It's nothing. There's
nothing.
We see 15 minutes in it, but it's just kind of just, maybe
feels like it feels catering to the player. Billy feels like a player's coach.
And
That's what it feels like to me. And maybe that's what the way you got to coach now.
And that's what I'm saying. Maybe change the way they practice. Maybe Austin Armstrong goes in and say, hey, at Southern Miss, when we were really good on defense, we practice this way. I don't know, because once again, we're not there enough. But I think that the reasoning could just be, and like I said, you have to say, this staff has just not done a very good job coaching this football team.
Well, look at what something like a Billy Gonzalez has done in development, player development. These are the kind of things that need to occur right now, because you've got to get these young guys to start. You got to coach them up.
Not just young guys. You got Jason Marshall giving up the first touchdown pass of the season.
My God, he has just sucked all year.
These are not.
God, he just sucks.
The mistakes that are being made at a high level,
the secondary
are not the young guys. They're not. I mean, R.J. Moten was in on that first play. The first touchdown pass they gave up against Utah was on R.J. Moten, who had been at Michigan. I think this is his fourth year in college football, and Jason Marshall, who's in his third, and when at that time was a projected possible first or second round pick. So, I mean, like I said, I just think that the coach, what is being done right now, and it just has not been a very good job. And you have to raise the level of the players you have. Nobody is getting better other than Graham. I mean, guys on offense are. I mean, and I don't want to, but on defense they have regressed as a unit. And I think it's
all year they've gone backwards.
Right, and I don't think it's just Austin Armstrong. I think Austin Armstrong, from my opinion, is actually the right guy for the job. But I think the way they do things has really got to change.
I'll throw in a couple of things, and then I've got, I'm driving. I got to get home.
We're going to wrap it up here. Some final thoughts.
I'll throw two things at you. In 1995, Florida goes to the Fiasco Bowl, and Tommy Frazier is still running. I promise.
I was there. And I was at that game.
I saw a Lawrence Phillip clip today, and it made me shiver.
Next year, they didn't make wholesale changes. They just made one change in the staff, and it was Bobby Stoops, and it made a difference. Mm-hmm. Look at what Georgia did. Georgia was always getting close and didn't. But look what happens. They bring in Will Muschamp. Now we can look and say, well, Sean Spencer this and whatever like that. But Will Muschamp has been there and done that at the highest levels. He has been the coordinator. He knows. Okay? Nobody ever accused Sean Spencer, Corey Raymond, or any of the other defensive coaches of being a stark raving genius. Will Muschamp, however, has been, and the mantra fits well. Okay, there are guys out there. Trust me, there are guys out there you can bring in. What do you think Nick Saban does every year when he brings in all these analysts and he brings in guys who are former head coaches, etc., like that? That might be an answer right there. Is okay.
Coaching development.
We got these analysts, and I'm looking at them, and I'm saying, "Who dat?" I mean, if I'm from New Orleans, I'm one of these who dat guys. Who dat? Who dat? Who dat? What they may need to do is come in there and find a couple of former head coaches that want to come down here and retire, and you can get them analyst jobs, and they'll do very, very well mentoring a young Austin Armstrong. That might be the answer. It might be bringing in like a Will Muschamp type, etc. But if you go back to 95, the 96 defensive staff was basically the same defensive staff. The only difference was they had a new coordinator and they brought in new blood. And that may be the answer right there. I'm not trying to make excuses or anything like that, but I do know something has to change, and maybe that's an answer. an answer, maybe not the answer, but maybe it is an answer to the whole deal.
All right, well, Franz, you look like you're in like an alternate like movie. You kind of feel like I feel like you're like Equalizer 6 right now. You know, just driving in the car and going to regulate on somebody. Hey, Franz, I appreciate you stepping in tonight and coming onto the show. I wanted to always great to hear your thoughts. You got a big fan base out there now, buddy. So Franz Beard, check him out at GatorBaitMedia.com. He writes like 400 times a day. He's awesome. He's the machine. And appreciate it, Franz. And I will talk to you soon as usual.
And by the way, Loren, welcome back to this side of the Atlantic.
No,
he's been in fall. He's been in the falls.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Franz.
The things a man will do to make his good-looking wife feel good about him.
That all, sir.
Yes. Thanks. He's Franz Beard. He's the best. You can see him here on the Buddy Martin Show on a regular basis and also on GatorBaitMedia.com. Subscribe today. I don't know. He does a lot of things at one time. Look, just a few seconds here. We've gone a little bit longer. Buddy's been up there at the Gainesville Quarterback Club tonight. He'll be back tomorrow night. So please tune in tomorrow night. Loren, I am with you on this whole the buck stops here, and somebody has got to answer. Billy has taken that on, but almost regurgitating this stuff to the press. It's like Groundhog's Day every post press conference for the last month, where we hear him sort of saying the same things. Now, Missouri, I'm actually really frightened about what's going to happen in Missouri. And I think they're a pretty damn good football team. And I think they're an up and coming team. What's your take on, do you think they have an outside shot up there? Because I don't think you could play, a really good high school football team, a state champion of Florida high school football team. I think that defense might get scored 30-31.
Well, I mean, that's I know what you're getting at. It could go bad or it could go really well. I mean, the one thing that you could say about Missouri is I think defensively they probably are on par with LSU from a talent standpoint, and Florida was able to move the ball. So once again, like we talked about, can Florida find a way to muster a turnover or two to steal a possession, kind of get ahead a little bit, maybe get up, 21-7, 14-0 early, and then kind of, fight to hang on a little bit. I mean, I will say that Brady Cook is a willing runner. I don't know if he's a threat like a KJ Jefferson or a Jaden Daniels, in that vein, maybe more like a Carson Beck. So if they can affect him a little bit, I mean, obviously they haven't. And, the one thing
anybody.
Right. And the one thing I'll say is, it's funny, we come on here and I get a little, not ticked, but you and I have talked about it. I mean, we take the time.
Well, because we're Gator fans. That's the thing.
But we also come on and we told people what was going to happen against Georgia, and it did. What could happen against Arkansas, and it did.
It did.
I mean, if you want us to come on here and say Florida's going to win every game, then we can. But at the same time, like somebody just said, our linebackers are smaller than our quarterback. That is not a good thing. And yes, they are, because I've seen them in person. Yes. So yes, they are. And, it's those things that lend us to think that this thing. So how do you put yourself in a position schematically to be successful? And that's what's not being done, in our opinion. And even the coach even said so in some ways today or yesterday in the press conference. So going back to Missouri, I think it's a tough place to play. Somebody even said it's almost like a step above, just barely, Vanderbilt. And I've never been there, so I'm not going to insult. I've been to Vanderbilt. I'm not going to insult the good people of Missouri with their stadium just yet. But the fact that it's a tough place to play, it is a good thing, I think, that it's a night game as opposed to like an 11 o'clock start Central Time, which it could have been. But I think it's going
Utah was not supposed to be that great either,
right.
by the way.
Well, that's true. And it's what was I going to say? Yeah, Utah.
It pisses you off. You go back to Utah, it's like flashbacks, it's trauma.
But Missouri, you know, I mean, it's one of those games where it's not supposed to be that cold, which will be good.
59 degrees.
All the things, yeah. So all the things that could be working against the Florida Gators kind of have worked. So now it's just getting down to playing football, making plays. And if we looked at it from the beginning of the season, I thought this was a game that Florida would and should win. But right now, Missouri is doing a better job of getting more out of their football team. I mean, they literally lost their best receiver, and they're better on offense. Dominic Lovett, there was their best receiver. He transferred to Georgia, and they're better on offense. So, you know, I mean, they've got to, you know, here we go.
Hey, you know why? I think they got a pretty good head coach.
Yeah, I mean,
they got a leader.
But you know, it's funny. He's very much like Billy Napier.
He's been there. This is his 4th year, so you know, there's the other side of that argument.
Well, but is that? I mean, are we doing that or no? Are we really doing that? That it's his 4th year or no? I mean, because to me, it used to not be at the when did it become at the University of Florida? When you took
well, it's different. You got more patience there, and so I think that's the difference.
But my point is, most people come in and at Florida, I don't care whose players they had and things like that, and they go to work right off the bat at the University of Florida. Even though Florida has had several coaches, they have all come into Florida and gotten after it right off the bat. So
right away,
regardless of facilities, things like that. Now all of a sudden,
no matter what the problems,
right? So. Like I said, I just think that this is, I think Florida, let me say this, Florida from a coaching standpoint needs to get bowl eligible. And here's the reason why.
Not gonna
I would assume that there will be opt-outs. But because of the opt-outs of the bowl game, there will be 15 practices that will allow those that will play in that bowl game to get better. I think this is a football team that is in need of as much practice as they could possibly get. And with that said, I think that that's one of the things that, I mean, they've got to find a way to get that 6th win. And I think
that was supposed to happen in Vegas last year.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the hardest games I had.
That was a tough game to watch. Yeah, I agree.
Kick a field goal to not get shut out.
Yeah.
That's painful.
And like Robert said, I think Florida will move the football and score.
I do too.
It's just going to be, you know,
shootout.
It's going to, and I don't know. I mean, they've got to, I mean, what do they have? Like 6 turnovers the entire year? 5. They have got to get some turnovers, man.
They're counting 4. I heard Billy said the other day they're counting turnover by downs.
Okay, I can live with that. I mean, from a coach.
Okay, sure.
I mean, those count. Okay, I can give you those, and some have been huge in deciding games, and even the 2 kept them in the game the other night. So, I mean, I can live with those, but if you just talk about organic turnovers, you know,
like interceptions.
Yeah,
how many pick sixes they got?
Yeah, 0. And I think, I mean, so. And really forced fumbles, I think they've only got 1, because even the guy against Arkansas wasn't a forced fumble, it just kind of came off. So I just think that, you know, we got to see things, and like, you know, here's Toby chiming in. I mean, if everybody looks at this game organically and just sees it for what it is, just take the name off the back, you just throw the resume down and look at what you see on film. It is what it is. And, you know, I have the beauty of maybe, I guess, doing this on a part-time basis so I can maybe be a little bit less. I don't have to necessarily be in relationship with some of these guys that are really good at it and do this for a living on a you know, guys like Friends and things like that. But I think that, you know, when you just look at it, they got to find a way to get that 6th win. and they've missed a couple opportunities when they had it. Laying the egg against Kentucky, and just really just screwing the pooch against Arkansas. There's no sense in that.
Every week, even last week, I get excited. I really wanted it. I almost feel like a kid where I was like, if I just really think about it and I say it and close my eyes, they'll win. And I believed at that goal line stands. I really believed that for a second. I was screaming and yelling, and they were in the game, but they just didn't finish, and it was sad and hard to watch. And I know all the other stuff, but
Right.
I'm never gonna be okay losing against LSU,
Well,
Georgia. I'm never gonna, and my God, I might vomit if FSU comes into the swamp at 7:00 game. I mean, you just got like that. I'll never even pick them.
Will not taste the same.
I would be very upset.
Let me say that just for people that I think that sometimes I get engaged with the viewers a little too much, but I'm going to say this just so you know who Loren Meadows is. France is 6 hours ahead of Gainesville, Florida.
Yes,
I was up until 5 a.m. on what would be Sunday morning.
Yeah, watch the game.
Illegally streaming the game.
Yeah, of course.
Against LSU.
Absolutely.
So, there is nobody. Brendan
look,
Martin,
nobody.
Look behind me. Nobody wants us.
Look, you travel the games on your own dime. Just in general. Look, I mean, you got more Gator gear than anyone I've ever known. So, don't talk about your shoe collection. That's a whole nother conference. That's a whole nother show.
Right. But we just have to really look at it as, this has to get better. And no, we can't keep firing coaches. We just can't. The realistic.
I agree.
So Billy Napier. As far as I'm concerned, he probably needs to be here 6 or 7 years because we can't keep doing this. And when I say we, we that like college football and things like that.
I thought that about Jimbo.
Just like I thought it was like Texas. Texas A&M has what? How many national titles do they have in the modern era? Since they integrated schools in the South and things like that.
I don't know. I don't want to give in. They're so weird there. The fan base with the fish calls. I've been to that thing. I've been down a couple of days. It's crazy, and they're super psycho. I can't stand that thing. Anyway, listen, we run over time. Look, of course, I'm worried, about the recruiting class because that's the one thing I've hung my hat on. Right now the sky isn't falling. Nothing, no scuttlebutt, but you never know how these things can go with the recruits. I've heard Kirby Smart's having breakfast with some of these guys. And of course that's normal. It's what you sort of expect. Because that really is going to make a difference. And that's because if we're talking about Billy right now with like an awful recruiting class and nothing seems to be changing, then I think we'd have a different conversation than we're having right now.
Right.
But we're not. And I think that's the saving grace. I just don't want to see that go away.
Well, here's the thing, and I'll leave with this, kind of a scouting report. So in the last 3 out of the last 4 weeks, we've seen Dominique Lovett, Ra Thomas. We saw Malik Neighbors the other night against LSU. And then this weekend, we're going to see Luther Burden. So you're going to basically see probably 5 or 6 of the top 10 receivers in the country. And, enjoy the show. And sooner or later, Florida's got to hit 7 and 11 and get lucky and play well against one of these groups of receivers. So maybe this is the week.
All right. Thank you, Loren Meadows, for coming on to a little overtime tonight. Appreciate all you guys that ran with us tonight. Toby, Robert, all the regulars. You guys are the best. I will say goodnight to you, Loren Meadows, and I will probably text you 400 times in the next 2 days.
My man.
So, all right.
See you Thursday. All right.
See you Thursday. Okay. He's Loren Meadows. Check him out on GatorbaitMedia.com. He acts like he's part-time. He's not part-time. That dude works full time. Thanks for everybody tonight. Really quickly, let's get a little graphic thing up there. Hey, Buddy's talking about getting it. Wrong software, Dad. Wrong software. Love you. Buddy Martin will be back on tomorrow night. Of course, you won't have to deal with me. And I want to tell you really quickly about Red Star Medical Research. Red Star Medical Research is a research facility located in beautiful North Central Florida, and one of the fastest growing retirement areas in the country. Red Star research staff work with local physicians and private practice and community hospitals in the setting to provide multidisciplinary team focused on meeting enrollment goals and ensuring strict regulatory and protocol compliance. Check them out. They do all sorts of really great things for this local community here in Marion County and beyond, in the Central Florida community. They have clinical research trials for Alzheimer's disease, Alzheimer's prevention, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, diabetes, fibromyalgia, and all sorts of stuff. You can check them out at Renstar Media. They should have a media company. Renstar.net. They've also sponsored our show since the airport. That's right, folks. That's why I'm feeling nostalgic tonight. I might have to dig the old video out and say it. We want to say a quick thing to shout out to Meldon Law. They have been a sponsor of this show as well. Of course, you hear from Jeffrey all the time. Check them out at meldonlaw.com. They don't back down. They handle all sorts of your lawyer type needs and things. There's no read there. I did my best. I hacked it up. Sorry, Jeffrey. I will buy you beer. Okay, so that's going to do it for me. I am Brendan Martin, not Buddy Martin. Buddy will be back tomorrow night and tell you all about his experience up in Gainesville. And we'll have more tomorrow night with about Allie Keith Wilbur. We will have David Bolton, Buddy Martin, all sorts of a really good Wednesday night show. So make sure you check it out. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. You can do that by clicking right down here. There's a little red YouTube icon. Seriously, that I know we joke about it, but that's the number one way that we can continue to provide this content for free. Just by subscribing to the show means a huge difference for us, because that drives ad revenue for us, and that makes it possible for us to continue to do these shows. And we have been on the air, as you guys know, for a good 6-7 years, and it always helps. Whew. Okay, so now, thank you. Love you guys. Thank everyone coming out there, all the regulars, all the newbies. And as always, I think you have to understand, especially for me as a whole, I love the Gators. I bleed orange and blue. So good night, all, and go Gators.